Hello, I'm Justin. This is Kellan. Welcome to The Fizz. It's becoming a bit of a trend, I think, on the drip here where Anthropic kind of steals center stage. But from my point of view, there's a lot happening in the news cycle of AI. I think some of those links will make the newsletter, but they just seem to be really coming for it right now with the features they're releasing into their ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of timely for us because I had been, well, at least on one of them, I'd been complaining to you, not to you about you, but just like to vent to you about how difficult it was to find a good solution for getting AI to integrate with design. Like, and usually the issue I kept running into is whatever, you could find a lot of MCP servers or AI accessibility to different platforms like Canva or this, Figma or several others. But those all required to have like a pre-existing investment in pretty specific templates.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's say I wanted to produce a presentation, but I wanted that presentation to reflect our brand, our colors, our fonts, our layout, and spacing choices. The most common treatment I'd see in an MCP server is basically just like a generation. So basically like an image generator. Here's a prompt, generate a deck. And so you get all this like ornamentation of like stuff that's not on brand and maybe it's cute or weird looking, but you didn't want any of that. And so the solution was like, oh, I always got this back researching it. If you want this to work, you need to have a template and we can replace the copy.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then I was like, oh, but you don't have a slide in your template that has this type of layout, so we can't do it. And I was like, this is a pain in the butt. And then like a day later, Claude Design was announced.
Yeah, it was like a day later.
Which I honestly, I haven't had a chance to play around with it. I've seen some people posting about it. It looks pretty cool. I guess the storyline here that's really interesting for me, and I think I had a post about this on LinkedIn a bit too, which was we've come from this place where using AI effectively required integration with the tools you like to use. So you'd figure out how to get AI to work with Google. You'd figure out how to get AI to work with Outlook or Figma or Power BI or SQL Server or whatever it is you do. And now Anthropic is starting to say like, well, we're just going to bring the tool directly into our environment.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really coming for some of these things. So I just think that's really interesting, like moving forward, like how does that capability affect other tool choice? Like at some point, will Anthropic be providing sort of like a new evolution of a design tool that makes us feel like we don't need something like a Figma? Feels very plausible that starts happening.
Like obviously they want to connect into other systems. It benefits them, but at the same time, those tools have clearly like they see all the telemetry data, right? They're seeing when like someone's in a Canva chat and like, I'm good. And so it's interesting. They're likely using AI to improve AI a lot.
Totally.
Specifically with the telemetry data. I'm not saying they're necessarily like looking at like the data, although who knows, but they are looking at like where to apply effort on their stack. And clearly design was one of the things which makes sense because every time I go into like a design type of session with like Canva or one of the many different design tools or plugins or whatever, you just never know what what the output of that work session is going to be, which is not kind of where you want to be with design.
Right.
You kind of want to need to know, generally speaking, here are the four walls of where I'm trying to go. Like I work with Canva before, and I'm like, I just need this logo, like in a rectangle format, and it gives me business cards back. I'm like, what are we doing here? So you just, and I'm not trying to like hate on Canva. I'm just saying like it has its pros and cons. I'm just saying like that's not what I asked for, and I think that's just a limitation sometimes of plugging in a non-native kind of tool into a closed environment. You don't know necessarily how everything's working together. So yeah, I want to dig into the design tool. I also think I think they added this, but the ability to collaborate on like, these are kind of like similar to skills. Like these are our design principles.
Right.
And, just need to follow these, and that like removes a lot of like the context around the basics when it comes to creating new content for your company or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Was thinking about what the hard part of this equation has been. Like technically what's been the hard part? Because when you have a brand, however simple or intricate that brand might be,
Mm-hmm.
in its definition, it's ultimately a system. And so you want to follow the system when you create new artifacts.
Yep.
And it's been honestly somewhat disappointing how difficult it's been to find something that will follow the system in a reliable and good way that is then also then easy for human and AI to collaborate together, because rarely does the AI one shot everything, right? There's still, I think
Mm-hmm.
even in design, there's the final 20%, like you've talked about with code of, copy refinements or subtle moving things around. But when you get stuff that you like can't remove from the image because of how, and I think some of it, I think just has to do with fundamentally how, let's just call it the legacy application stack worked and how things would get rendered and how all those layers work together. And there's
Mm-hmm.
not really a UI or an exposed kind of code style definition of everything that's in that thing you're seeing on the page. And so I think there's a real barrier for something like Claude to get into some of these tools and really be effective the same way it is with something like just straight code for software or websites or things like that. So I bet your telemetry is probably spot on. They're like, okay, this is a common struggle. Let's build a solution for it.
But also there is some like just basic stuff that like it should do given the right context and tool access and things like that. So
I think there is something to appreciate about the potential simplicity of this idea where the tools that you use to create whatever it is you create, design work, code, now dashboards, which we spent the last decade ourselves in that arena,
mhm.
is now kind of natively getting supported there. They definitely want you to be served there versus constantly figuring out how to integrate on other things. And so I think, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I'm very interested to see how this all keeps unfolding because I think it's a real opportunity for disruption in the way people get things done. And listen, you can subscribe to lots of different narratives here, but I think most people want to be able to use AI in an effective and valuable way.
The harnesses have been built in such a way that like they're gonna perform better in code.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you got plan mode, you
Mm-hmm.
have these things that like their whole goal is to like lock in on the specific context that needs to go into the request. So it's like a lot of back and forth to like optimize the prompt in a sense. And so like you can imagine that like without that, code would be a lot harder.
Right.
So it's not
Right.
doing a lot of research. It's not looking for patterns. It's not looking at your markdowns. It's not looking
Uh-huh.
at your, and so like design needs the same kind of structure to be as successful as like a cloud code would be on code
Right.
bases. And so you can imagine like a situation where like you're doing a plan
Mhm.
for a design and that like it's searching your design framework, your rules, all that stuff before it's like, just like one shotting designs and going like just getting super proactive. So like that the requirement then becomes, well, I kind of need a design to be rendered in tool so that I can iterate on the plan just like you would
Right.
on the code.
Mhm.
So anyways, my like final thought on that.
No, I think you're spot on because, well, even code, right? So make it really approachable and simple. Code is plain text files
Hmm.
that can be read, interpreted, and run by other computer systems that have been advancing for decades. So it's human readable, therefore it's AI readable.
Hmm.
Whereas let's just call it like, I don't mean this to be demeaning to any product out there, but like amateur design tools, like
Yep.
or like pro-am tools, not the Adobe big suite, all the fancy stuff. That's not the case. Most of that work was done in a UI of like
Yep.
point and click and select, or like an image on a background was like an actual image that had already been created and was like purchased maybe from like an image shop or something like that. So I think it's a different problem. But I think the
Hmm.
point you're bringing, you're right. Like if we want Like it's going to take something like that to be able to get to the level of precision. Otherwise, I think we'll see more of what we've been seeing outside of tools like Claude Desktop, where you have the AI assistants inside of these software products that effectively
Mhm.
just kind of understand how to navigate the software and make different selections. So we'll see. I would expect more of this from not only Anthropic, but Google,
Mhm.
OpenAI, where there's more reason for you to have a high tier subscription and to stay in their environment. And you'll have a choice to make what's right for you and your team. Do you want something that's convenient and simple and works, or do you need something that's integrated with another tool stack or another type of workflow? Both paths are advancing pretty fast right now,
Mhm.
which is exciting. All right. Well, inside the bottle, I think you and I, the vibes have been good this week. We've been making some really good progress on a product we're working on, and I don't think we don't come here to talk too much about the product or to do some big promotional exercise, but more so about a process we've used a couple. Really, we've used it a couple times now to allow AI to help you and I collaborate and get clear on what we're trying to accomplish, what we can kind of leave behind or stage for later. And then I think the outcome benefit for us is I think we both feel this rush of clarity and focus that, we did one of these earlier in the week and it's like, oh, it'd be really good if we got all of this version one stuff we agreed on done this week.
Mhm.
And then and now we're in the middle of a week. Today's Wednesday. When we're recording this, and this morning we're like, well, maybe we'll pull some of the version two stuff forward because we've made so much progress. And so I think maybe just talking a little bit about because you've kind of set this up when we've done this before, so maybe hearing from you kind of how you've approached it. But I'll just set some context. The product we're building is designed to help people with everything we've been talking about for Tiny Bottle with focus relative to AI. So helping you think about where does it make sense for you to look? And then based on what's happening there, like what do you actually need? Because not everything is an AI problem. AI
Right.
can probably help us build the right solution, with high confidence nowadays, but slap some AI on it might not be the problem. So, anyways, we've been really excited about this and people we're talking to about it are really interested and really excited too. And so, well, we've got to get this thing to be real. And so that requires us to do work and to be organized. Yeah, earlier this week we sat down and did that. I don't know, kind of what I was really impressed with how that deck came together. But what was your thought process and how'd you work with Claude to kind of bring that together?
Yeah. Well, first, yeah, I think the product that we're building for training and kind of this broader question is really, really cool. Like, done a great job on that. And so we're just kind of in the process now of locking in that V1, like you said. But there's a lot of, little issues and
Right.
just little things to kind of dial in or fix or whatever. So
Mhm.
it can start to like sprawl out. Like if you think about how many sessions will that be needed to kind of work with an AI to like actually fix, it can be kind of significant. I mean, even if you start bundling things, it's like, time gets away from you. So I think it's always good to refocus your efforts towards like sprints or whatever methodology you use
Mhm.
in terms of what is the actual delivery needed and in what time frame.
Right.
And for us, it's like this thing is mostly done, but we need to, it was funny because the Claude came back and said like, okay, the V1 bar is like, don't be embarrassed
I thought,
in a in a presentation. It's like perfect. That's a simple litmus test for like all development for this sprint.
yeah.
And so like what I basically worked through like a Claude session on was I want a deck and like a one pager, like a summary of the deck that was like gathering all of the GitHub issues, all of the PRs, all of
Hmm.
the like any things that needs to surface from the code, any other concerns, but not like make a decision. Like
Right.
put it in a deck so that we can have a meeting that is recorded and make some decisions on the deck that is parsable by the AI. And then once we've made those decisions, feed back the transcript and then the deck to that same session to potentially like bundle PRs into V1 or V2 plus or whatever, and like lock in what are the specific division of responsibilities and like and just like make some decisions like
Right.
yeah that would be really cool but like it just might be a little bit too it
Hmm.
needs more testing that like we just don't have time for or whatever and it seems simple but like sometimes the sessions that I actually don't do any like code, like diff, like you have
Mhm.
no plus. It's just simply like you're adding uh, a human in the process to
Mhm.
like lock in the sessions that you need to do in the future is way more valuable because it like prioritizes your mind a little bit. And AI, like Claude Code, things like that, you see these like memes and stuff on the internet, like it's kind of an addiction. Kind of is,
Totally.
can be. Like if you get down a rabbit hole and you're starting to like add features and stuff, you're like, it can like never end.
Mm.
And so you need to kind of get it to a point where it can actually deliver something that
Right.
works every time. And you do need to anchor your thinking every once in a while in like gates, you know?
Mhm.
So that was kind of the goal. So we had like I don't know, like a 30-minute meeting instead of like having a bunch of questions in GitHub
Right.
or Slack or whatever. We could just go through it all at once. These
Mhm.
weren't like necessarily like complicated decisions. There's just a lot of them. So just do, go, go, go. And then like, if we can finish all this, then we can, have the benefit of maybe adding a couple things if we want on the dev side. But yeah, that was pretty much it. And like it also provides a lot of clarity where like I think I can get this done this week,
Mhm.
which adds some it does add some vibes and some kind of like I don't know, sometimes like a project can feel like it just never ends.
Oh,
Um,
one.
yeah, and so, like, this helps, I think, in, like, okay, it might never end, but, like, at least we're gonna be at a stopping place that feels really good
Mhm.
in the near future, which I think is just a healthy thing to do if you're using AI a lot,
Mhm.
is just to, like, stop, think about like, have a session with it's not a therapist, but I'm saying, like, have a session with, like, "Look, I got a lot of stuff on, that I've created a lot of issues, I
Right.
got the code, it's got a lot of placeholders in it. I just need give me like a finish line that's like a week
Mhm.
away from now. What do you think is it's terrible with guesses, but like
It
it's
really
but
is.
like yeah, but like give me something that where I'm like it's usable, like I feel good about its release. I can tell people about what the
Mhm.
new stuff is in it. And maybe even just take a break from it for like a few days at that point. I
Yeah.
think that is healthy.
Yeah. For me, and you've had this experience too, it's relatable to the 80/20 dilemma we've talked about. I've had the idea for AI Pathfinder for quite a while now, and felt validated time I talk to someone about what they're doing with AI in their company, and like you hear
Mhm.
the problem and like, okay, there's a need here that I think we could build something that solves. But when you're going solo on something, you see everything. I wrote about
Yeah.
sort of the art of redaction on Substack this week of like knowing when to stop, knowing when to not build something or knowing when to take something away. And when you see everything that could be addressed, both user facing, both on the back end, because you can move so quickly with AI, the clock speed is so different. It's very difficult to keep up with.
Mhm.
And we've had conversations in our meetings where
Yep.
you realize like I've been able to do so much in the past 24 hours that I kind of have forgotten what I've done
Yeah.
because you're not
100%.
you're not sort of immersed in a small segment of it for as long as you would have needed to have been
Mhm.
otherwise. And so for me, when we do that sort of, because if you ask Claude, like, or any AI, ChatGPT, like, it'll happily be like, oh, I've analyzed, I think we should work on this next and let's keep going and let's keep doing this. And you're like, oh, great, I'm making progress. But when we sit down and there's a deck that's all lined out and it's got, I don't know, what was in there, maybe like 30 to 50 decisions, like, should this be included? Is this a problem? Everything from user experience to deployment and security and everything in between. And, to go through all that and then come out and be like, okay, here's a clear way to collaborate. Things Kellan can work on, things Justin can work on, and we can just then get things knocked out. And I feel like we're much closer now to being like, oh, this product can be used. Every product can always be improved, right?
Mhm.
And it will be improved for as long as it's useful to people. But this has been true in software for a long time. I think what AI changes is this is an opinion of mine, it does sort of disrupt the way you might have used to work, right? Because if you're used to, let's just pick on something like agile first, like 2 week sprints where whether it's tasks or issues or whatever terminology you use, they're weighted and scored and assigned, and you work in peered teams of developers, like that might not apply anymore. right?
Right.
But what does apply is, okay, if you just stay in that loop, you will find yourself being like, oh, let's just do one more thing. Let's just do one more thing. Let's just one more thing. And you'll lose the clarity of when to stop because it's so easy to continue.
Yeah.
It was harder to continue before. So we were forced to make those types of decisions. You go back
Yeah.
10, 15, 20 years, software teams would have to like delay things for an entire year. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a very different thing. And I think anytime we've felt some sense of overwhelm or confusion, or scatteredness, those centering exercises have been really helpful. And AI has been a really important tool in helping us do that.
Yeah. I agree. And then sometimes it's like, all right, here's 10 other things that we should start next. It's like, no, I think we're good. Like we're good. And so I think, like you said, like knowing when to stop is like a learned skill that takes practice. And I wouldn't let it be dictated on your time.
No.
If I was like providing advice, like I would let it, like you be in control of when that session should be done,
Mm,
instead of like, oh, I ran out of time, so I'll just stop here. It's like that's not a great. I mean,
right.
that might happen, but I'm just
Right.
saying like that shouldn't be like the reason why
Mhm.
work stops or something. It should be like just it's pause for a second. I'll finish it, but like
Yeah.
that's not the gate, if you will. The gate is like the goal of whatever thing you're doing from the start, right? So like
Yeah.
you have a beginning, middle, end. It shouldn't just be like beginning,
Mhm.
middle, 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 end, and then like a quick beginning again. It's like
Yeah.
I discipline and with AI is massively important. Probably maybe one of the most important things.
I'm guilty as charged to falling into this vortex
Yeah, me
because
too.
when I set up, this was early on in
This is
building.
learned
Yeah,
through
learned
experience.
experience.
Yeah.
Early on when I'd built most of sort of the scaffolding of Pathfinder at this point, and I have a knowledge base of like specs and vision and what it's about and how
Hmm.
it's supposed to work and all this. So I set my open cloud. I said, "Hey, can you just?" I did one of those like, "Hey, can you just take a look at this and sort of like familiarize and like maybe give me some things?" And this is the dopamine trap. I think with some of
Yeah.
these tools is it was saying all the right things and it became like my number one hype person. It's like this, we could take this to the next level and you could build this and this. And I was just like, hell yeah, let's do it. And
Yeah.
so then when I finally come back, it was like, oh my gosh, we've made an absolute mess.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to prune this branch.
Yeah. It's
And it's like I really wasn't doing any focused work there. It was just I was just sucked into that agent hyping the product and having ideas that I legitimately thought were cool, but failure to execute because it
mhm.
wasn't a controlled type of a process. So I think,
Yeah, and I think also, like, you can get really burnt out,
yeah,
uh, where you're just like, "God, I don't even wanna use AI anymore." And I think that comes from just, like well, I think it comes from a number of different things, but, like, one of them is just there's not a clear goal of
right,
what you're trying to accomplish, and the goal can be clear, but, like, the the session you're in or whatever is, like, guiding you to some other goal unknowingly. Sometimes you're
right,
like, "Wait a second,
yeah.
I didn't even wanna be I didn't even need this to be on an iPhone. Like, why did I just add an iPhone app?"
The other benefit I think is because it's really difficult to lose this when you're just moving really fast in any generative AI oriented project, which is just having a shared understanding of priority.
Mhm.
You've probably heard this 1,000 times, the idea that priority is a singular word. And so it's like just the sense of, okay, the most important thing I got to finish is this. And it doesn't make sense to worry
Right.
about any this other stuff until this is done. And so for someone like myself who, I've worked really hard in my career to build systems that help keep me organized and on track. Because if I don't, I'm scatterbrained. Procrastination, you forget about it, right?
Same. Yeah.
So if with AI, if I just get into this mess of like, you're like, hey, so what are you working on? It's like, well, I'm about 1,000 things. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, the one piece of advice I would give is just that, like, the more you build, the more you probably will have to fix. So,
Mhm.
just be, like, cognizant of I don't even wanna call it, like, scope creep because it's kind of a different thing. It's like
Right.
AI creep
Hmm.
where, like, it's adding things you didn't really ask for
Right.
that may actually create a problem down the road. So you didn't
Mhm.
actually add any time. You've sucked time out of your schedule actually, because you're going to
Mhm.
have to fix it eventually. So yeah, just get very locked in on the
Mhm.
priorities, and just get really good on that feature or whatever you're build or
Mhm.
doing, to where it's like actually usable, and then you can scale on top of it on a working foundation. So
It's been really fun to crank on it last couple of weeks. It's couple of days, excuse me. Our first project where we've had, other than the website, where we've been like really starting to crank and work on something together, which introduces all kinds of
mhm.
potentials for code conflicts, or your AI thinks this pattern is the way to deal with something and mine thinks it's different. And then we run into all sorts of, but I've found this exercise we've gone through to be helpful in that regard too, to keep things well documented, organized, separate, and
Yep,
clean.
agreed.
So yeah, I'm excited to get it to a state where we're able to kind of share it with folks and talk more about it on the right channels. But there was a tweet from someone who's a fairly high ranking engineer or product owner at Amazon.
Mhm.
And their role was to basically keep tabs on everything that Amazon was doing for AI. And basically this long tweet, it had to get cut up into like 6 pages to like go through. Basically, like it's absolute chaos. Like team A is making a tool that's the same as team B, and then team C is making a tool to summarize what team A is doing. Team C doesn't even know that they've summarized a summarization of a different document and they don't have access to the original document. Right. And it's just sort of like,
Yeah,
this conversation made me think of that. It's like a even big company like Amazon. He's just like, yeah, there's just everybody's doing AI and moving so fast to try and make AI features or bring it to the product that they're even losing the ability to keep track of it.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah. No, wow, that's wild. Yeah. It almost brings you back to the basics of,
hmm
like, everything, like, seek to understand, like,
hmm
don't move too fast. Like, the whole, like, move fast and break things, like, is kinda dangerous potentially in certain environments.
hmm
So, we just pick let's just decide what environment you're in, and
yeah,
then maybe move at the speed that's needed in that environment. Like rockets, maybe we move a little slower. A sandbox environment where you're just kind of demoing and playing around, go as fast as you want. Production Salesforce environment where users are needing to like update deals and stuff. Maybe a little bit of testing and kind of sandboxing would be helpful there.
sage advice from
Yeah.
someone who knows.
Yeah, I can tell you it's good to measure the get the temperature of the room a little bit.
Well, appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoy the show, appreciate a like and a subscribe. Pass this along to your friends as well. We look forward to sharing more about AI Pathfinder with you. But until then, we'll see you next week.
Peace.